Good morning, children. Welcome to economics class. So, in the last session, we just finished the class by discussing about the methods used in economics for analysis. One is the induction method, the other is the deduction method. Under the deduction method, which is otherwise called as analytical method or abstract method, from the general principles, we deduce the hypothesis and the possibilities and we arrive at a concrete confirmation, which is called as deductive method or deduction method. The other method is called as inductive method, where we take a problem or a particular situation into consideration, and from that we just facts are collected, experiments are made, observations are made using statistical methods, and then we analyze, come to a generalized assessment or generalization of the collected data. This you call it as inductive method, or otherwise it is called as empirical method. With this we finished last class, and now let us go to the next topic of economics, the facts and theories which are used in economics. A small introduction only. This is in no way related to the it doesn't come under any evaluation part, but we need to know that economics is concerned about facts and various theories are made in economics. So those theories are only formulated as laws. So using the different methodologies, that is the inductive method and the deductive methods, economists, they make make observations about the facts. One example I shall tell you here. Let us consider the price of a commodity. Okay, how the price of a commodity and the quantity the commodity that we demand are related to each other. Let us, for example, take the price of onions. When the price of onions are less, when the price of onion is less, we demand more units of onions. When the price of onions increases, will we demand the same units of onions? Definitely, the quantity demanded for onions automatically goes down. See, in reality, we have seen so much of examples. We have come across this situation also. When the price of onion is just 10 rupees, your mommy buys 5 kgs of onions, and she utilizes more of onions and reduces the utilization of other costly ingredient. Now, let us assume the price of onion has risen up to 50 rupees per kg. Now, will she buy the same 5 kgs of onion? Never she will do it. At the max, she'll buy how much? 2 kgs of onion and reduce the utilization of onions. What is the reason? The price has made an impact on the quantity of commodity that is bought. Okay, that is demanded. So, when price increases, quantity demanded decreases. When price decreases, quantity demanded increases. Very simple logic. So, what sort of relationship exists between these two? Direct relationship or inverse relationship? An inverse relationship exists between the two variables, that is price and the quantity of demanded of a commodity. So, economists, they formulate based on this only, the economists have formulated the theory of demand. And whenever there is a theory, the fact is just put into testing. Okay, the collected fact, that the fact is when price increases, quantity demanded decreases. This is a fact. But this is put into various tests. And based on the test, okay, and the results obtained, it has been universally accepted. Okay, this theory has been universally accepted and the theory is now raised to the status of a law. Okay, so this is a small difference between theory and law. Based on the facts that are collected and a study is made and a testing is made. Based on the results of the test, a theory which is in the status of a theory is now raised to the status of what? Law. Only when it is universally accepted. When universally many people accept a theory, then it becomes a law. Okay. Now this is the difference between theory and a law. Next is, let us like this, there are various various laws which we learn in economics. What is the nature of the law? See, the law means it expresses a causal relationship between two or more variables. Okay, when we take into a study two or more variables, okay, there is a cause and effect analysis. Because of this is happening. Here a very simple example, the previous example itself you can take. Just because price has increased, okay, what is the effect of that? a reduction in the quantity demanded. So what is the cause for reduction in quantity demanded? The increase in the price. So it is based on a causal relationship between two or more factors. And also there is a statement of tendencies, that is an inclination. When price is reducing, my tendency is to buy more. Okay, more of a commodity. So this shows that economic laws are statements of tendencies. Okay, so they are based on the motives or the tendency to buy a product. And next thing is mainly economics is concerned with the motives of money, and it is measured by money price only. In natural sciences, when you see, in natural sciences also there is cause and effect, and likewise in economic science also there is a cause and a effect analysis. Next is Marshall. In economic laws, many say that economic laws are not as precise and as certain as physical laws. To some extent, we need to accept it. See, economic laws are very, very precise. Precise means it is 100% true. But economic laws, it is not as precise as science, physical science laws. One small example I shall tell you. Law of gravitation. Law of gravitation, okay, when a ball is thrown up, okay, Newton's first law, when an apple is thrown up, it falls down. That is how he was able to understand he was able to propound the law of gravitation. So when a body is thrown up, because of the gravitational pull, it falls down. Okay, so is it clear, or is there fact in this? 100% there is fact in this, and it is also very, very clear. Where there is no gravity, okay, the object stays in the place where it is thrown itself. Just because of the gravitational pull of the earth, okay, an object which is thrown up falls down. Okay, next is a physical scientist carries out controlled experiments in a lab, and he can test the scientific laws very easily by changing conditions obtaining there. So when we talk of a law in physics, okay, the theory is made as a law only after proper testing. And where is this test being done? In a laboratory. In a lab only the tests are being done. Only only after analyzing the outcome of the test, and only when it is accepted universally, it becomes a law. So where is experimentation being done? The experimentation is being done in a lab only. But whereas in economics, okay, experimentation is done and results are also predicted, and it is also taken as a law, but it is based on human behavior. Okay, the law is experimented only on human behavior. So predictions regarding human behavior is likely to go wrong, because human beings, when you talk of human beings are the most complex personalities in the world. Okay, human behavior only has got more of complexities, because we don't behave the same way throughout our life. At one time, our our mindset is different, and the same person, after some time, the behavior of the mind is totally different. So human behavior is susceptible to so much of changes and so much of complexities. So as unpredictability is invariably associated with economic laws, that is, you cannot predict that a human being will follow this particular protocol. See here, 2 hydrogen plus 1 oxygen gives you water. Okay, when you change this composition, you will not get water. Likewise, can I say that the thought of this person and the other person will give this particular outcome? It is never possible, because it is very difficult to analyze and clearly predict the behavior of human beings, because economics is what? A study of human beings. How man acts to his present life. Marshall's theory of Marshall's definition of what is economic: study of human behavior in the regular business of life. Okay, what man does in his regular business of life is economics. So it is totally unpredictable. Next is Marshall. He compares the laws of economics to the laws of tides. The laws of tides cannot be predicted, is it? Can you say that the tide should, every time the tide rises to this particular level and then falls to this particular level? It is not predictable at all. So sometimes the tide has a very high tide, sometimes it has got a low ebb also. So he compares, it is Marshall who compares the laws of economics to the law of tides. Next is human behavior is volatile in nature. Volatile means that which never stays for a long time. It is susceptible to changes. Okay, now I have a very good mood to take the class. After half an hour, if you ask me to take the same topic, I may not be in a position to take the topic in the same tempo, because human behavior is what? Volatile. It doesn't stay same throughout the lifetime. Next is economic laws are not assertive. Assertive means it is not confident. Every time when price increases, okay, will I buy less units of commodity? It cannot be true always. Sometimes if I want, however might be the price, I will buy the commodity. So there is no confident or real answer for economic laws, and they are indicative. Indicative means that which changes according to one's mind. It is true, is it? Okay, if I feel like eating only, I will eat. If I feel like watching a movie only, I will go to the theater, I will watch the movie. Otherwise, I will not do. Okay, so creating a demand, okay, depends, is more indicative, and it is more assertive also. There is no confidence that this is likely to happen in this particular individual. Okay, so economic laws are not assertive and they are indicative in nature. So the law of demand says that quantity demanded of a commodity increases when price decreases. Okay, this is applicable only when other things remaining same. Now we need to understand what is other things. What do you mean by other things remaining same? In economics we call it as ceteris paribus. Underline this. Other things remaining same, we call it as what? Ceteris paribus. Ceteris paribus, what is it? See, in physical science, all of you might have completed your 10th and now you are in 11th. Okay, whichever course you might have taken, but basic science you might have learnt in your 11th standard. All of you might have learnt Boyle's law, Charles' law and all. Okay, what does Boyle's law say? The pressure is inversely related to the volume of the object. Okay, what is the condition? Temperature remaining constant. This is what Boyle's law says. That is, pressure is inversely related to what? Volume. Okay, provided what? The pressure temperature remains constant. So in physical science, okay, this law is applicable only under certain conditions. Okay, suppose if that condition is not satisfied, the law does not apply. That is what it means, is it? When temperature is not constant, when it keeps varying, is Boyle's law applicable? It is not possible. Pressure will not be inversely related to volume. Now here, in economics also, we have certain things which are taken to be constant. Okay, when price increases, quantity demanded will decrease, is the law of demand. But under the condition, income should remain same, the taste and preference of the individual should remain same. Okay, price of substitute should remain same. So there are various other parameters which are kept constant. Okay, which are kept constant. Only under this particular situation the law will hold good. Okay, so the economics, the laws are hypothetical in nature. That is, you can never give a clear answer, but this is sure to happen. Okay, it should be admitted that, however, in many of the physical sciences also, okay, in physical science there is more of exactness is there, but in economics it is not as precise and as exact, but to some extent it is true. It is based on fact. And next paragraph we need to see that, okay, laws of economics are more exact, precise and accurate, okay, than social science, but not as accurate as physical science. The last one is the economic laws are simply truism. Okay, the law is based on true facts only. Okay, it is based on true assumption, true facts only. That is, savings is a function of income. It is a we'll be learning under savings function and investment function in the forthcoming lessons. Okay, but when you talk of savings, when do you save? Only when you have an income, a portion of the income you take as savings. So can you say that savings depends upon income? It is true. So economic laws are simply truism. Truism means there is truth attached to it. Likewise, another example of truism is human wants are unlimited. Is it true or false? It is absolutely true. Our wants are totally unlimited in nature. Our wants are endless. Till we live in this world, our wants keep on recurring. It is limitless. With this, we are just finishing what is the nature of economic laws. Next is a subdivision of economics. Okay, this is a probably a 3-mark question, I remember. Okay, it is a 3-mark question. Okay, under the subject of economics, the various subdivisions of economics are very simple to understand, children. Consumption, production, exchange, distribution. That's all. About each subdivision, we have a separate chapter dealing with each subdivision. So for us, it is here a small paragraph is only given under the heading of consumption. But we will be learning a full chapter under the heading of consumption. But now, as an introduction to understand what are the divisions of economics, it can be broadly divided into 4 branches. What are they? Consumption, production, exchange and distribution. What is consumption? The first and foremost starting point of all economic activities is consumption only. Only because we need to consume, we want a commodity, we need to consume, goods are being produced. Just imagine, I'll just put you this question. If none of us, we have the instinct of hunger, okay, what will happen? யாருக்குமே பசிக்கவே இல்லை. Okay, that is we don't get the instinct of hunger. ஒத்துருக்குமே பசிக்கலை. Because this is the nature. Just assume that none of us are hungry. Okay, no, throughout our lifetime, we are not at all hungry. What will happen? Do we have to produce food? Definitely no. Okay, the main starting point of all economic activities is what? Consumption only. Only we need, just because we wanted to consume, the other subdivisions are working. If consumption, the element of consumption is removed from economics, all the other economic activities will come to a standstill. No other economic activity will function. So the starting point of all economic activities is what? Consumption. So we have a separate chapter dealing with wants. What are human wants? What is the behavior of human wants? Okay, how an individual behaves, okay, when he consumes a commodity. Okay, in that we have the law of diminishing marginal utility and consumer surplus law, theory of consumer surplus we have. So these topics will be learning under the concept of what? Consumption. Next is production. Production. Consumption is a primary activity to consume the commodities to satisfy human wants. Goods have to be produced. What is production? It is the transformation of inputs into outputs. That's all. Okay. What is production? It is a conversion or transformation. It is a process of conversion or the process of transformation of inputs into outputs. Okay. Now, what all this division covers? It division covers the characteristics. To produce the goods and services, just like that, we cannot produce without any factors of production. Now, you can ask me, what are the factors of production? We need land, we need labor, we need capital, we need organization. Okay, so we need a land, a place to produce goods. We need people, labor, workers to produce goods. Yes, we need capital, we need money to produce the goods. That is also there. And to put everything into place, to combine land, labor, capital, we need an entrepreneur. Okay, we need an organizer who will combine these factors of production to produce the goods. So, production is what? It is the process of conversion of inputs into outputs, and the role of factors of production is studied under production. And also we will be learning about the concept of production function, that is the relationship between the input and output. For this much amount of input, what is the amount of output? We will be learning under a concept called as production function. The next topic is exchange. Exchange is concerned with price determination in different market forms. What is it? Is just fixation of prices. Okay, see, the goods can be exchanged from one person to another person only after fixing a price for the commodity. The producer will sell the goods to the wholesaler only by fixing the price of the commodity. So this division covers trade and commerce. Okay, almost a similar topic we are discussing in commerce also. Okay, so this division of exchange, it covers trade, Okay, what are the activities which are related to trade? Commerce. What are the activities which are related to commerce? So consumption is possible when only when the produced goods reaches the hands of the consumer. Who takes the goods from the production point to the consumption point? It is only the intermediaries who take it, which is learnt under the heading of exchange. Okay. Next, the last subdivision is distribution. See, distribution here, just like that distribution, if I ask you to say the meaning of distribution, what will you say? Giving away, okay, or dividing something and giving it to people. You might say distribution of notebooks, okay, distribution of money, okay. You might use the word distribution in these aspects. But in economics, distribution means distributing the reward for the factors of production. What are factors of production? Land, labor, capital, organization. Okay. Reward means what? The price paid for the factors of production. Okay. Price here means what? Okay, the income that is received by the factors of production. See, when you are hiring a land, what will you give in return? You will give rent, is it? Okay, when you are taking a land for production process or for your factory, what will you give to the landlord? You will be giving him rent. Okay, you are hiring a person for work. What will you give him in return? You will give him wages or salary. Okay, when you are borrowing capital, what will you give to the person who has lent you capital? You will give him interest. Okay, likewise, so land, labor, capital, organization are factors of production. The money that you give, that is a price that you give for the factors of production, that is rent, wages, interest, profit. These are called the rewards for factors of production. Okay, what are they called as? Rewards for factors of production. That is what you will be learning here. So, the rewards for the factors of production is dealt under the subdivision of distribution. Just underline that. Okay, so distribution studies about what? The pricing of factors of production. What is the rent that should be paid for the land? What is the wages that should be paid for a worker? What is the interest that should be paid for the borrowed capital? Okay, so study about these prices for the factors of production is dealt under the heading of distribution. That is all. Now the time is 22. Every day I take almost 30 minutes. Today I shall just finish the class with this topic itself. Tomorrow we'll go into a new topic, that is the types of economics, micro and macroeconomics. Today we have learnt a very important topic called as subdivisions of economics, that is consumption, production, exchange and distribution. With this I shall finish today's class, children, and for today's homework I want you to just a second. I want you to write question number 30. That is the different types of economic activities. Okay, what are the different types of economic activities? Production, consumption, distribution and exchange. Okay, a very small homework only I am giving. I think I can give you one more topic for writing. Okay, fine. Okay, let us stop with this itself. Okay. So I want you to just do what are the subdivisions, that is the different types of economic activities as a homework. That is all for today's class. Okay, I shall just wind up with this. Have a good day. Bye-bye.